You are watching the Midtable Up Podcast highlights. Please put your foot through the like button and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to follow us on our social media and on Spotify and the podcasts app. So we're beginning to move into those Europa League spots now. Matt, who is your number 6?
Mine is going to trigger some people, and good. Mine is, the slip. Steven Gerrard's slip. It's out there, man. It's a cracker.
It is up there.
It didn't make my list, but I definitely thought about it.
Same. I'm with you on that. I was the same, Simon.
He slipped, and they lost the league, and it was it was even more ironic that 2 weeks after he told everyone that they should make sure that the title doesn't let it slip.
Yeah, that was just before, weren't it, when they beat City 3-2?
Oh, sorry, before.
Yeah, just before. They were like, we don't let this slip. But no, it's definitely a great moment. I do. It's so. Yeah, it's almost surreal watching that back, especially now with Liverpool being so good. But at that point, you genuinely did think they're never going to win the title again, to be honest.
It did feel cursed at that point, didn't it?
It did, didn't it? Like, you did feel like if they couldn't win it that year, then when were they ever going to win it again? That was what it felt like.
And one of their greatest players is the one who's gifted the title up. And that's why I think, for me, it's a moment that is not... I always feel a little bit sad. I mean... As you say, it will trigger some people, but when I watch it, I'm like, because I love Steven Gerrard as a footballer and as an England player and all these other areas, I feel so gutted for him every time I see it. It's so bad. There's nobody near him. All he needs to do is just pass the ball forward. There's no pressure on him, no pressure on the ball, and he just falls. And it is twinged with a little bit of sadness for me.
But the thing is as well, because they didn't even need to win that game, either Liverpool, a draw would have seen them fine, and then obviously they would have gone into the Palace game afterwards, because it basically, that slip pretty much also triggered the next result against Palace, because having lost that game to Chelsea, Liverpool were then like, well, the only way we can win this now is on goal difference, and City had like 10 better goal difference than them, so they went 3-0 up against Palace, and were then still... throwing everything at Palace, because they were like, we need to put 5, 6, 7 past this lot in order to have any hope of winning the title on the last day of the season, really. And then obviously they completely capitulated from there, drew 3-3, and that was the final now in the coffin. But yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that moment it was such a catalyst, not only for the 2 fixtures after that, but also. I feel like we almost wouldn't be here without that moment. As I said, we all thought that...
Were you conceived because of that slip?
Yeah.
George, is that what you're telling us?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah, obviously, Gerrard slipped, and then that's how I was born in 2014.
This is how COVID happened. It's because Gerrard slipped in that one game.
It's because Gerrard... Yeah. Do you know what I think I find so interesting about it? And Simon, you're right, it is a bit sadistic to like it, but fuck Liverpool. The thing that's so...
You really are triggering fans, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that I like so much about it is that it's almost like the great leveler, because if he was out of position or I don't know how to twist it, if it was something down to him as a player, you could blame it on him, but it wasn't. It was just a little bit of unlucky, and players slip and fall all the time.
Yeah,
we see it regularly, and it was just
a shame.
Like it was just the universe just wanted to make him slip at that exact moment. I mean, he probably looked back at it and thought, all of the thousands of times I could have slipped, I could have fell over.
But all the thousands of times he probably did, and it didn't make any difference. And the one time it counted was this one.
Exactly. So it's just such an interesting example of you can be the best player and do what you need to do on the day and have the best positioning and do all these great things, But ultimately, you always need a little bit of luck in football to get.
A little bit. I mean, that kind of slipped for me, even though obviously that was the big moment that really decided it. Looking back on that season now, to be fair, as we said before, that it felt like if they were going to win it, it was going to be that year. But even then, that title surge was mainly on the basis of Suarez and Sturridge goals. Both those two were unbelievable that year. Suarez in particular, and obviously after the World Cup, he ended up going to Barcelona. But it was just that whole year. They had Mignolet in goal, and defensively they were weak, and they were susceptible to making mistakes all over the pitch anyway. And it was just so kind of strange that the one that was the ultimate downfall was from arguably the greatest Liverpool player of all time. I mean, again, that's very debatable, but certainly of the modern era, the greatest
He's
certainly
up there of all time, isn't he?
Yeah,
let's be honest.
I feel like if he doesn't make your top three, I feel like you've done it wrong. I will say that. But for that to not be, for that to be the moment that ultimately derailed them, for me that it was huge. And that's the final whistle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Midtable Up Podcast. If you enjoy our top 10 lists, please make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Let us know what you would have done differently. If you watch this episode on YouTube, make sure to put your foot through that subscribe button and leave a like on the video, as well as follow us on Spotify and the Podcasts app to keep up to date with the series. Thank you very much. See you next time.